I'm with Rabbi Dov Lipman, former member of the Knesset. Now, Dov, Donald Trump declared Jerusalem as the Israeli capital, and he's planning to move the embassy to Jerusalem. Is this a historic day?
We're here sitting in Jerusalem, in the old city of Jerusalem, and you can feel the history in the air. People have a little bit of a skip to their beat because something which we've known as a Jewish people, that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, not for 70 years, but for 3,000 years, to see that reaffirmed by our closest ally, to see that recognized, it's a great day of celebration, and it is a historic day.
Do you feel that sense of history?
I really do. And as someone who grew up in America, as an American, it was something that always bothered me. Why is the closest ally, a country that in my mind stands for truth and justice, why are they not making the simple recognition of a fact that this is our capital? And to see that historic mistake corrected, it makes it a historic day, it makes it a day of celebration, and it makes it a day where truth comes to the fore.
Many presidents have said they were going to do it and they haven't done it, and Trump has actually played on his word.
One of the things that you see in Israel today, which I think is fascinating, obviously President Trump is a controversial figure, people on all different sides of the issue, and you see that in Israeli politics in terms of how do people relate to him. There is unified thanks, unified gratitude, and unified respect for the fact that he promised something and he kept to his word.
Have Israelis been celebrating today? I saw that the Israeli-American flag was projected on the wall of Jerusalem.
That and last night, the red, white, and blue, the bridge and the entrance to Jerusalem was in red, white, and blue. There's a feeling of we're closer. America and Israel is closer today because of this decision. There was always that gap where we know we're friends, we know we're allies, we know we help each other, but why? Why won't the United States recognize, something which is from the Bible, something which is from God, something which is eternal, our connection to Jerusalem? Why is that not being recognized? And there's a feeling of, okay, you know what? We can breathe a little bit easier now. We don't have that gap anymore in that relationship.
Do you think this is going to bring trouble from the Palestinians and the Arab Muslim world?
So it's interesting. They threatened beforehand about how terrible things were going to be. I think you'll have little troubles here and there, which the police in Israel have to deal with. I don't think you're going to have some kind of overriding problems because, like I said, this is not in any way changing the status quo. This is very important. I'm here in Jerusalem today, and I saw Muslims roll out their carpets and pray on the floor. People on Temple Mount are praying, the Muslims. I was here with a group of Christians. They went to the churches here in the Old City today. Everything stays the same in terms of Jerusalem being a place where all faiths can worship, all faiths can connect spiritually. So there's no reason for things to change unless to be ignited, unless people are looking for a reason just to have an uprising. I don't think it's going to happen, and I'm happy that no one gave in to the fears or the threats, and that people said what's right is right, and we're not going to let threats of violence stop us from doing what's right.
Is this move illegal under international law? The UN will be holding a meeting.
It's definitely not illegal at all. The status of Eastern Jerusalem is the question mark in terms of, and the holy sites. No one ever talked about whether or not Western Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Let's remember, we just celebrated 70 years since November 29th, 1947, when the UN voted for the partition plan, which gave Israel half of this land, and we accepted that. And the Arabs did not accept that, and we accepted it. And of course, Jerusalem, Western Jerusalem, was going to be our capital. So there's no violation of international law. I would ask anyone who asked that question, why is it that every other country in the world has the right to determine what their capital is except for Israel? Does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense. Every country determines its capital, and Jerusalem is where our parliament sits, it's where the prime minister's residence is, it's where the president sits. This is the capital of Israel, and therefore there's no violation of any kind of international clause by doing so.
By saying Israel can't have Jerusalem as its capital, are you holding Israel to a different standard, and is that by definition anti-Semitic?
So it's definitely holding Israel to a different standard. I'm not willing to jump right away that it's automatically anti-Semitic. I don't think the United States was anti-Semitic in all the presidents who did not allow this to happen. I don't think that they were anti-Semites. I think that they were miscalculating the upheaval to the region if they do this. But there was definitely holding Israel to a different standard, which, by the way, we find over and over again in many issues. Missiles are lobbed into our cities and we go to fight for ourselves, to defend ourselves. We're held to a different standard. We can't do that. Any other country in the world would defend itself the way Israel does, and probably even stronger than Israel does. So there is a different standard that Israel is held to. What I'm looking forward to right now is other countries following suit. Once the United States has done this, other countries can have the freedom to then say, you know what? It is the right thing. This is their capital, and that'll be a wonderful thing for Jerusalem. It's a wonderful thing for Israel, and it's a good thing for the world, for just truth to be the guiding light in terms of how decisions are made.
That's one question I was going to ask. Do you think other countries will follow America?
I can tell you I was in a meeting today with speakers of parliament from Africa, and some of them were joking about how they have to get in on the real estate now while it's low because embassies will be following suit. I certainly hope that happens, and it'll be the right thing to do.
Where does this leave the peace process? Was it already dead?
There was no process at the moment, that's for sure. So it wasn't holding anything back. I actually think on a certain level it advances the hope for peace, and I'll explain why. Once this Jerusalem issue of being the capital of Israel is removed from the table, now we can talk about the real issues, which is how to help the Palestinians have a state of their own while providing for Israel's security. And the symbol of Jerusalem can sort of be removed from that picture. Of course it's going to be complicated. Of course it's going to be a long process. But there was no process going on until this point, so we haven't stalled anything. If anything at all, maybe the countries in the region will realize, wow, this Israel-United States relationship is real, it's solid, it's cemented. Jerusalem is now not part of the major equation of these negotiations. Let's deal with the real core issues, which are how to set up a Palestinian state, how to provide for Israel's security, and that's what we should be focusing on.
Palestinians have called for 3 days of rage. Do you think this could be the start of a third intifada?
They certainly have threatened that. To be honest with you, if I was a Palestinian right now, that would be the last thing that I would do, to use this opportunity, so to speak. Let's remember, the United States helps the Palestinian cause. There's a lot of money flowing into Palestinian humanitarian issues, and they will be the ones to help the Palestinians establish a state, and therefore it would be a very big mistake for them to do so. Israelis are not living with that fear. Israelis are not living with bracing for the worst. Israelis are focusing on, at times you have to do what's right, and that's what we've done throughout our history at key moments, and we're not afraid of what will come. I always say our young children, when they were 5 and 6 years old, they also threatened to tantrums when they didn't want what the parents were saying, even though what the parents wanted was right. This is the right thing. We have to do the right thing, and we'll have the security measures in place to deal with any threats. But no, I don't fear any kind of a major intifada.
Why is Jerusalem such a hot potato? Is this a spiritual battle?
So it is, but not the way people understand it. Jerusalem is the heart and soul of the Jewish people. For 2,000 years, we turned toward Jerusalem to pray. For 2,000 years, we said next year in Jerusalem. It's mentioned in the Bible close to 700 times. Jerusalem is not mentioned once in the Quran. It was never a focus of Islam. It became a focus when they realized how important it is to the Jewish people. They realized that if they could somehow rip Jerusalem away from the Jews, that's going to take away the spiritual heart and soul of the Jewish people in Israel. And therefore, it is a battle, but it's not a battle of it's primary to us, it's primary to them. It's not. They stand in Jerusalem and they turn towards Mecca and Medina to pray. We will give freedom of worship to every single religion. We will continue to do so, but it's a spiritual battle for Israel. It's a strategic battle for the Muslims.
As an Orthodox Jew, do you see God in this?
I 100% see God in every single development that happens in Israel. This is the land that God gave to us. This is the land that God promised us in a covenant, and therefore whatever happens here is directly under His providence. And all the wonderful things that we see happening in Israel, the spiritual developments, the physical developments, the reflourishing the land, the ingathering of the exiles, the return to Jerusalem, that's all part of it. And I don't have a doubt, again, as someone who understands America well, and the spiritual side of America, that this cements that spiritual relationship even further, because I know that America is a country filled with spiritual, faith-based people who have always seen Jerusalem as the capital of the Jewish people and of Israel, and now that's just cemented by their own government's policies. So yes, God's hand, and we give thanks to God for this great day.
Do you see this as fulfilling biblical prophecy?
So I would say the fulfillment of biblical prophecy really happened in 1967 in the Six-Day War, when we regained control of Jerusalem in a miraculous fashion. I don't know if necessarily there was a prophecy specifically that one country or another would recognize it as such, but anything that helps the development of Jerusalem and furthering the cause of Jerusalem, that is a continuation of biblical prophecy about Jerusalem one day flourishing again and being a hustling, a bustling city filled with older people, younger people, hearing the sounds of joy from Jerusalem. So on that level, it continues the fulfillment of the prophecies that started in 67 and really started before that with the return of the people of Israel to Zion.
How can Christians pray for Israel and the Palestinians at this time?
I believe the first thing is to pray for peace, to pray for safety of both Jews and Muslims and Palestinians and Christians in this land. We need those prayers. Pray for the leaders in Israel to make the right decisions. Pray for the leaders of the Palestinians to make the right decisions for their people. Let's have people making decisions for the benefit of the human beings who are living here and not necessarily thinking of destroying other entities. There should not be any kind of agenda for destroying Israel. Let's think how we can generate a holy land where all people can live side by side in faith. As we're speaking, I hear the church bells in the background. That's the beauty of Jerusalem, that you have all the faiths here worshiping together, and the prayers should be for the security of Israel, security of Jerusalem, and for the well-being of all the people who live in this holy land.
Okay, Rabbi Dov Lipman, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. God bless.